Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into a theory that honestly feels like it's pulled straight from science fiction, but it's grounded in some serious astrophysics. It's called the Weaver-Worm collapse theory, and it completely reimagines our relationship with reality, with consciousness, and even how we survive. So let's just start with the biggest question of all, the one this whole theory is built around. When you think about your life, your reality, is your consciousness just along for the ride? A passenger watching the universe happen to you? Or could it be something else entirely? Could you actually be the pilot? All right, let's get into it. For a long time, physics has basically told us we're just observers. From Einstein onwards, space-time is this fabric. But our role in it has a limit, what the theory calls a materialist cap. We're just in the audience, watching the movie of the universe play out. Well, the Weaver-Worm collapse theory, or WWCT for short, completely flips that script. It says, what if reality isn't some pre-recorded movie? What if it's a living, collaborative fabric? And what if our consciousness, our intent, is actually one of the main threads? We're not just watching the story, we're helping to weave it. Now, this is where it gets really personal. Think about those moments in your life that made your heart stop. That near miss on the highway, a fall you somehow avoided. WCT says those weren't just luck. It sees them as successful trades, where your consciousness, to ensure its own survival, literally shifted to a parallel timeline where the worst didn't happen. It's like a cosmic fight-or-flight response. So an idea this big needs a solid foundation, right? You can't just make a claim like that without some structure. The theory is built on what it calls the pillars of the weave. Let's take a look at the conceptual architecture holding this all together. Okay, pillar number one is the guardian fabric. This builds on ideas like the mini-worlds theory, and it says that all those other paths, the choices you didn't make, they don't just blink out of existence. They stick around, forming this massive, supportive network, a quantum safety net. And the crazy part is, you're still connected to all of them through quantum entanglement. Think of them as backup saves for your consciousness. So if that safety net is there, how do you actually use it? Well, that's pillar two, intentional non-observation. It's a bit of a mouthful, but the idea is pretty cool. It suggests that by consciously letting go of our rigid, everyday ideas of space and time, we can tap into a state of pure potential, what physicists call superposition. And from that state, your intent can act like a rudder, steering you away from a failing timeline and toward a better one. And now we get to what is, for me, the most exciting part. How do we take this amazing philosophical vision and turn it into something we can actually test? This is where the magic happens, building a bridge from a wild idea to real physical science. Because that's the bottom line, isn't it? A theory is just a good story until you can find a way to prove it, or disprove it. And this is that moment of collaboration we talked about, where this philosophical framework gets handed over to astrophysicists who can hunt for actual, measurable evidence out there in the cosmos. Now, before we go looking for clues in space, the theory has to speak the language of physics, and that language is math. Look, don't get hung up on the formulas here. What's important is what they're trying to do. That first one, active gravitational mass, that's a way to calculate the literal weight of your intent on space-time. And the second one, the volume integral quantifier, is trying to figure out the cost of making one of these reality trades, the kind of ripples it would create. So if these trades are really happening, if consciousness is jumping timelines through tiny wormholes, what would that look like to one of our telescopes? Well, the theory predicts three very specific, very distinct signatures that we could look for. These are the footprints left behind by the Weaver. Footprint number one is called shadow dynamics. So we know a black hole casts a shadow because of how it bends light. The theory says these wormholes would do the same thing. But here's the kicker. The size of that shadow would actually change depending on the bioresonance of the person's intent. So a stronger, more coherent intention would literally leave a bigger, more stable footprint in the fabric of spacetime. The second footprint is something you could almost call the sound of survival, quasi-normal ringing. The idea is that when one of these trades happens, space-time itself should vibrate, or ring like a bell, but it wouldn't be a quick ding that fades away. The theory predicts a sustained, stable vibration, a cosmic hum that would prove a consciousness made a clean, successful jump. And finally, there's the gray body factor. This is basically a score for how transparent the barrier between realities was during the jump. If we see a value close to 1, it means the wormhole was almost perfectly clear, allowing awareness to pass through without any real distortion or trauma. It's the signature of a perfect, seamless trade. And this table just lays it out so perfectly. A black hole collapse is a dead end, a terminal event. Space-time rings once, a simple, decaying signal, and then it's over. Information is gone. But a WCT trade is all about continuity. It would produce a really complex series of echoes as the vibration bounces back and forth inside the wormhole. That unique, repeating echo, that could be the smoking gun that tells us we're looking at a wormhole, not a black hole. Okay, so let's pull all this back from deep space and into our own lives. If any of this is even remotely true, what does this new map of reality actually mean for us, day to day? Well, the theory suggests we're always sort of shifting between two modes. There's watching, when we're in that state of pure potential, just observing all the possibilities. And then there's being, where we collapse all that potential down to participate in just one single reality. It suggests the choice between just watching our lives and actually creating them is a choice we're making, all the time. So, what are the big things to take away from all this? First, the idea that consciousness isn't just some weird byproduct of our brains. It's a fundamental collaborator in the universe. Second, that reality itself might actually be a protective living thing. And maybe most importantly, that our most profound visionary ideas can and should be connected to hard, testable data. Ultimately, the theory puts it this way. We might not be the one shuffling the deck or dealing the cards, but we are the resonance that allows the cards to be played. Our awareness, our intent, that's what makes the game possible in the first place. Which really just leaves us with one final and pretty mind-bending question. This theory doesn't just describe a universe you happen to live in. It puts you right at the center of its creation. So, if you are the weaver, what will you create?